Yeah. So you had this career as an airline pilot, and then at a certain point,
Yeah.
still very young, you decide to pack it all in and go and work for Grant Cardone in real estate. What made you make that decision?
So, and this is very unique with my story. I actually knew that this is where I was going to be when I was 17, 18, 19 years old. I just looked at my life and I realized I didn't have any money.
Yeah.
I asked my uncle when I was 17 years old, I was like, man, I want to buy my first house. And he
Yeah.
looked at me, he's like, son, you have no money. Like
Yeah.
literally, you have no money. And so he's like, you have to go work, you have to build your capital, and then you can go and start investing. And so at the age of 24, 25 years old, 2008, 2009 happened, the Great Recession.
Yeah.
And I actually went back because I was based in Chicago and St. Louis and in the Midwest, and I was flying all around the US, Canada, Mexico. But what happened in 2008, 2009, I started going back to Arizona, Scottsdale, and things were selling at 50, 60, 70% discount. And so I actually bought my first place, my first home, and I started renting out rooms. Because Fabricio, you know, pilots, they always need a place to live, right?
Yeah.
And so for me, I've always been this entrepreneur. People just didn't see it back then because nobody knew who I was. But I went and bought my first home. It was 4 bedrooms, and I leased out all 3 bedrooms. And so
you
my
did like
mortgage
an
payment was
like an Airbnb kind of thing.
exactly. But I kept the master bedroom. So when I went back there, I had a place to stay for free. So I literally, my mortgage was $800. I was getting $1,200 in income, and I had a place to stay for free. And I was like, this is the house hacking trick, right? But I realized, I was like, man, this is something that I've always wanted to do. But I realized I didn't want to live with the people.
Yeah.
And so I bought a 4-plex. The 4-plex was my next investment. And I rented all 4. I bought it for $125, and I rented the units out for $500. I was cash flowing each month. And I built up to 21 units, and I found myself, I was a manager. I was going to work at the airline, trading my time for money, and I'd come home, and I had 21 units where people were calling me like, hey, Ryan, can you come pick up the rent? Hey, Ryan, my toilet broke. Hey, Ryan, this, da-da-da. And I found myself going from making, whether it's $100 an hour flying for the airlines, to working at a job that typically pays a property manager, I don't know, 10, 20, $30 an hour. Yeah. And so I was like, there's got to be something better. And so I did that for 4 years, and I hit the age of 30. Yeah. And I realized that I wanted to do something bigger. I wanted to do bigger deals. Okay. And I found a lot of these roadblocks, right? Like, number one, getting the deal. I mean, a lot of these guys, if they don't know you and they don't trust you, they're not going to award you a 150-unit apartment complex, right? The second thing was I realized that the bank, I didn't have any experience, and I didn't have a property manager that could back me up, because I didn't have, I had built this great real estate, or this great flying, I call it my flying portfolio. Like, everybody believed in me. I was a trainer. I was a check airman. I was all these things. But when I went and transitioned to the real estate world, nobody knew who I was. Yeah. I had these cool stories, right? I mean, and that counts for something, but the bank does want to see experience. And then the third thing is, I didn't know, like, once you have 50 grand or 100 grand or 200 grand, you run out of money. And so I didn't know how to raise money from outside investors. And then, so that I didn't have a network, but I didn't have the confidence. And so at the age of 30 years old, I started watching YouTube, what people are going to see us on today. Yeah. And I found the Grand Master Flex, Grant Cardone. I mean, everybody knows him now, but when I've been with him for 9 years every day. 9 years ago, we didn't know these mentors. We didn't know Grant Cardone. We didn't know all these people like we do today, because social media wasn't as big back then. Yeah. And so I literally picked up the phone. I called his office and I said, I want to come work for you. Now, the craziest thing in the world, and this is what's cool about life, right, is you prepare for these moments in time. He was literally working through buying a G200, like going through due diligence. And so I called him. I said, look, I could fly for you, but I also want to work with you in the real estate department. He's like, well, what do you mean? He's like, can you even fly this airplane? I was like, yeah, I've got 10,000 hours and I've got 21 units. And he's like, look, come work for me as a sales guy. And literally, I got hired on. 2 weeks later, I started working for Grant Cardone. And then 9 years later.
You left the airline job. You quit the airlines and went straight to Miami.
Yeah. And people thought I was batshit crazy, Fabricio. People literally thought I was crazy. Like, you're giving up the 401k, the 18 days off, the captain's seat. I was literally getting slotted to go fly for Mainline United. I knew I literally went up to Denver and spoke with the chief pilot. He loved me. He actually met me on a flight. Crazy story. Met me on a flight where there was a huge storm in Denver. But look, I had all these connections in aviation, but I gave them all up because I knew how big this was going to be with Grant Cardone.